Unbiased and on the fence.
The pinnacle of human perspective.
Welcome to Unbiased and on the Fence. I'm Shane. Today, I got something to show you. Now, I'm going to just kind of tell you where I'm going with this and then tell you all the synchronicities that followed. But basically, it all started with the thinker statue. Now, originally, his hand was on his other leg, and his forearm was sort of bridged across his knees, and the elbow was on either this leg or the forearm that's going across here is how I thought it was, but I've heard other people say they remember it over there, so that I'm not really sure about, but I do know that the position of his arm is such a way that it's up higher and it's on the fist is on the forehead, completely covering his eyes, of course, and which is a very important point because when I first discovered this actual, it just looked real twisted and odd to me, and then I began to, how can you say, my eyes began to be open and I began to realize things were being revealed to me. So here you see a brain diagram, and if you can kind of imagine it like a clock, you start here, you're born at 12:01, and this represents both sides of your brain. So your intuition, sort of your dreamy, what do you call it? Just, I think I got some images here. Here we see, if you just kind of go down and you can put, this is just images, left, right, brain on Google, but here you can see how there's some very creative artwork to sort of show how one side is real logical and the other side's kind of all over the place, very fluid and random and less logical, I guess you would say. So back to get out of the way. So I noticed my life journey was so that it was like I was born here and I kind of, you move around through the right side of the brain, constantly being introduced to more logical, things you see over here, rational thought and speech and motor skills and things like this, right? So, so as you work through, you begin to come around to where you're starting to maybe favor logic a little bit more. You stop fantasizing as much about things and dreaming, and you just kind of, this is thought of as being childish over here. So we tend to move towards this side over here. And as it relates to religion, this is sort of, where you begin to question your religion over here with logical questions, and that's exactly what I did. And I had got stuck here at 9 o'clock, basically, where, if seeing is believing. If I can't see it, if I can't put it in an equation or have some type of proof, then it doesn't exist, and that's totally ignoring the right side. That's totally ignoring any sort of abstract thinking. And a lot of people are stuck over here. I think, as it took me a while to even realize what's going on here, but as we moved around, as I began to sort of consider outside of the box of logic, since things changing are anything but logical or rational. So it forced me to start moving towards this. And it was really when I hit this point up here that I felt like I achieved some sort of enlightenment, if you will. it's incredible. It sounds like it's sort of an over exaggeration, but it really isn't. It's just been literally mind blowing for me as I realize I was wrong about a lot of things. And yeah, so part of that enlightenment was what I got, and it was called, I don't know if you guys checked it out. It was the parable of the thinker. And I felt like I hadn't heard Jesus' voice in years, and all of a sudden I felt like he was talking to me again, and then he gave me this parable of the thinker. And he goes like this: the very fabric of reality has been altered, but you didn't notice. You say, this is just how it always was. How would you know when you don't look? Always in your thoughts about what you see, but you don't see. If you had, you would see the thinker is mocking you. You've moved entirely to believing what your eyes see, but you don't know what your eyes have seen. You've moved completely to what can be explained in your thoughts, not knowing you lack real understanding. The thinker now mimics you, pondering life with only the eyes can see, with what only the eyes can see, and not with the mind's eye. This has left you twisted, unstable, and weak. Instead of thinking you have two minds in one reality, you use your left brain to construct a dual reality. Now, I got that just like it was my own voice in my head, and I still have doubts about whether it was just my own thoughts, just because of, I don't know, I'm just still a doubter. It's been a while since I've been back towards this right side, and I believe it enough to share it because it still did resonate with me, and it made a lot of sense. And then I had some synchronicities to follow.
Unbiased and on the fence.
So initially, I wanted to rule out the quantum computers as being the culprit of the effects people were experiencing. And I still contend that I don't think they're responsible, but there is an interesting relationship between what's going on with the quantum computers and what's going on with us, as I mentioned with the brain. The left brain, if we could put it in terms of computers, would be a digital computer, like what we have nowadays. Ones and zeros, very logical, very sequential. A quantum computer would be like our right brain. Now, when we say right brain, we typically, really think of the right brain, but I think it should really be thought of as, like a lot of people think of it as, like the heart. And sort of our connection to each other, the consciousness of everyone, right? The God, the source, if you will, the very life that makes us alive, the thing that connects us all, right? So when we talk about the right brain, we're talking about the quantum brain. How interesting is that? And so the computers are exactly the same way. While we've moved to becoming digital, which I don't know if you know, but that was introduced to to humans by back engineering extraterrestrial aircraft. That's where we get the processors, digital. So it's alien to us to be more digital. And I'm not saying that's the result of us moving more to a digital society, but it's just kind of ironic that we adopted digital technology for our computing from a different source, which is kind of strange because some people consider actual extraterrestrials, as some of them, or all of them even, sometimes being demons, depending on how you view that. So we've gone to using our digital side of our brain and away from using our quantum brain, while Our computers have done just the opposite. They've gone from being very logical to now tapping into this knowledge, and they don't know how it works. They just know it works, and that is really strange. Really strange. Which is why I have these clips I want to show you. These are just clips. You're going to want to watch the whole thing, but these were my synchronicities.
And the idea is that if we could heat that piece of steel up and to where everything would shift around for a few seconds, the molecules, and let it collapse. In the collapsing, it would take advantage of this unique now, and it would answer our particular problem if we could figure out how to program our problem into those molecules. You accept it and go for it. And maybe, as in real quantum computers, it's not right 100% all the time. But it's, and so basically the idea is very similar to that. Now that would be an analog computer. You don't know how the steel is forming the answer that it's giving you. You just know that it does. And when you take the heat away, just in the perfect answer that you want. And so it's kind of like, really at one level, quantum computing can be thought of, well, let's let universe provide the answer. We don't know how it's going to do it, but we'll set up everything, you know. And so a lot of people see it as, you know, rolling them chicken bones by the shaman. And of it, I don't buy the idea of alternate timelines. I actually find that there's equations in the consciousness energy construct that would prohibit such an idea. Okay, so the idea that there's a split off every time I make decision A, B, or C, and we get three possibilities and thus three timelines, it doesn't happen that way. There's no such thing as alternate dimensions where I can do something and corporeally shift into an alternate dimension. Such ideas are fanciful and used frequently in literature, but don't exist in reality. And a lot of the scientists that think that that's the case still think the sun is a nuclear reactor. So, you know, that shows you where their heads are at. So such things don't exist. The idea of an alternate timeline, no, it's bogus. Doesn't happen that way. The Mandela effect has nothing to do with that. And the curiosities of time don't require alternate timelines to exist in order to still have those curiosities. Time is a self-healing process, as is most of reality. So a lot of the things we would see as some marginal, maybe if you really twisted your thinking about it, evidence for an alternate timeline are really examples of the temporal structure of consciousness healing itself. So under the circumstances, the quantum computers, though, because they are in fact pushing away and trying to isolate that very real part of the most real part of reality there is, which is the quantum entanglement between particles. And it goes beyond that. There's many different quanta effects. Most of the quantum computers are trying to reach into the first four of the effects. Okay, well, see, this is sort of my contention. I could be way wrong on this. The Mandela effect could be entirely a psyop generated by somebody in the E-ring of the Pentagon. but I don't think so, okay? What I actually think is going on is a side effect of the quantum computers.
Okay, now check this one out.
Years ago, a psychologist called Roger Sperry studied these people who had physically split brains and made a Nobel Prize winning discovery. The discovery is that we do not have one brain, but two brains with fairly distinct functions. The left brain is what we traditionally call the masculine brain, the logical, the mathematical, the sequential, the achievement-oriented, the expressive brain, whereas the right brain is the feeling brain, the loving, the caring, the artistic, the music-oriented, the childlike, the playful brain. Now the fact is we have both sides of the brain. And the problem is all our parents, teachers, and education systems and universities tend to help us to use the left brain more, because the more we use the left brain, the greater we are a success in the world, at the cost of not using the caring, the loving, the feeling brain. This talk is to tell us how you can, in addition to being a success in the outer world, when you have these two words, thanks and yes, a new you is born. Your eye of intuition, the third eye is born. And when the third eye is born, you become a balanced person. You know, the third eye, according to Shiva, Shiva has got the third eye. That is why he's also called Trayambaka. And Shiva is the complete person, a good blend between the male and the female. And when you have the blend of the female and the male, you have access to both the inner world and to the outer world. You win the outer world and you become the master of the inner world.
So what do you think about that? Could that indeed be Jesus giving me this message? Does it make sense to you all? Does it resonate with you all? You know, really the only doubts I have is just the unbelievable nature of it. Other than that, it makes complete sense to me. It sort of simplifies everything for me in a way that, you know I don't really have to worry about all the specifics about things, because I now see an agency at work, so to speak, and thank God, a benevolent agency, trying to get our attention, trying to wake us up, trying to move us back to the love side, back to our heart, back to caring. And you know what? I know it wasn't from the devil, right? so anyway, I appreciate you guys watching, and please like and subscribe. I've got more coming. It's hard to keep up with everything, but I do appreciate all the new subscribers, and you guys have a great day.